So next up, we're going to do our Guilty Pleasures episode. We're going to talk about our best, worst movies. I'm going to start off with Buckaroo Banzai. What about you, honey?
I want to talk about White Chicks.
And I'm gonna talk about Teen Wolf.
Very cool. So Teresa, why don't you start us off?
Well, first I want to talk about Troll 2, and just the reason behind this Guilty Pleasures episode is that when it first came out, it was considered to be a horrible movie, but with time, people realized, like, this movie's actually so bad it's good. And so they had a documentary about Troll 2 called Best Worst Movie. So in honor of that, we've decided to come up with our own Guilty Pleasures or our best of the worst. So, Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah! I'm a Teen Wolf!
Clearly.
Which is a perfect segue to talk about Teen Wolf, the movie.
1985, right?
I think so. It came out just a couple months after Back to the Future was released and tried to ride the Michael J. Fox wave of popularity, but it didn't work. It got horrible reviews and was generally a middling box office film. This movie is my favorite movie for the same reason that it's one of the worst movies that was made in the 80s. When Michael J. Fox becomes a werewolf, he doesn't go out and terrorize innocents. He doesn't, hunt after the woman he loves most. In Teen Wolf, he plays basketball.
Of course he would.
What's great and horrible about this is when he is the Teen Wolf, he doesn't act any different than he normally acts. Sure, he's a little more confident in himself, and he seems maybe he's got more step to him, he can dunk a little better. What really seems to change is other people's reaction to him.
Well, sure, because you're looking at a hairy wolfy guy.
As soon as he comes out as a werewolf, he's cool at school, too. Everybody loves him. We do a long montage of him walking down the halls. And then one night, in his bathroom, as usually happens in these werewolf movies, he's looking in the mirror and desperately trying to control the transformation, but he grows long hair and he gets claws for hands, and his dad starts pounding on the door. "What are you doing in there, Scott? What are you doing?"
An explanation is probably long overdue.
And his dad explains that, I didn't want to tell you because sometimes it skips a generation, which to me is not a worthwhile reason to not mention to your son that he might turn into a werewolf. The movie, though, is filled with this great cast of ridiculous supporting characters. His coach on the basketball team, Coach Bobby Finstock, is probably the worst coach I've ever seen in a movie.
As good as being in the championship if none of us get to play.
It doesn't matter how you play the game, it's whether you win or lose. And even that doesn't make all that much difference.
Another problem with this movie, one that keeps it from working as like a conventional film, is that the stakes are just too low. He starts the movie out, the basketball team's losing, and he doesn't have the girl he wants, but it's not horrible. He's still got a circle of friends, and he's got this girl who obviously loves him, and he's got a dad who's there and present in his life. And then when he becomes a wolf, he's just really cool. And the big choice at the end is whether being cool because you're a werewolf is really justified.
Okay, I want to talk about White Chicks. When we were in film school, I took a comedy writing class, and a lot of people tried to write fart jokes. And our instructor told us that fart jokes were the lowliest forms of comedy. And granted, this movie just was filled with fart jokes, but somehow it made it work. And I think that's what's special about this movie is that they take the lowliest form of comedy and they make it awesome. The Wayans brothers are FBI agents, and they dress up as essentially
White chicks.
As white chicks. Like in the movie, they're not called the Hiltons, but it's clear that that's who they're making fun of. Their blonde wigs, their white face makeup, their dresses, they look like football players wearing a white wig. For some reason, all of these things that don't work make this movie funny.
Staring like we have to make my way through them crowds.
Take a different breath, this is Jennifer!
Into the sky, the youth don't die when cats come by.
There's this one actor, Terry Crews, and he plays Latrell, who is this basketball player who's in love with one of the Wayans brothers, his character. And while he's romancing one of the characters, she wants to get him to go away. She doesn't want him to like her.
Of course, because she's a he.
Yeah, exactly. So while he's taking her out on this expensive dinner, she just orders a bunch of food, and she eats a ton of it, and then to get rid of him, she just keeps farting at the table.
Come here, babe.
Oopsie, I had a poopsie.
Girl, we gonna get along just fine. Back at you. Bask in the ambience.
So this movie came out in 2004, and I can still watch it repeatedly. Like, it is a comedy classic that has withstood the test of time.
Well, speaking of parodies, I'm here to talk about the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension. And this movie was essentially somewhat of a parody of James Bond movies and action movies. And the basic premise is that Buckaroo Banzai is a brain surgeon physicist rock star who creates this device called the oscillation overthruster that allows you to travel through solid matter into the 8th dimension. Now, the only problem is that after his successful test of the oscillation overthruster, red lectroids from the 8th dimension that have been banished to Earth discover his invention and decide that they're going to steal his invention and use it to return to their home planet of Planet 10 via the 8th dimension and take power once again. Now, the good guys are the black lectroids, and they discover the plan, and they have to have Buckaroo Banzai stop the red lectroids from stealing the oscillation overthruster. Now, are you confused?
I have no idea what you said.
It takes a couple viewings to get a hold of it.
Right, and basically your confusion is why this movie bombed so badly when it first came out. It's got an amazing cast, great writing, great soundtrack, but you're just totally confused. And then to compound things, the editing of this movie is so awful that you frequently don't know where you are, you don't know what's going on, and by the middle of the movie, you're just completely lost.
It makes it hard to follow, and the director said apparently that they just didn't get enough coverage, and it was very tough to cut together.
But the reason I love this movie is, as I mentioned previously, it has an amazing cast. Peter Weller as Buckaroo Banzai,
RoboCop,
who of course starred in RoboCop. Jeff Goldblum as New Jersey. Ellen Barkin, and probably one of the greatest supporting actor performances ever in the history of movies, and that is John Lithgow as Dr. Emilio Lizardo / Lord John Wharfen.
Shut up, John Bigfoot, you coward! You're the weakest individual I ever know!
It's just absolutely brilliant every single moment that he's on the screen, and there are so many amazing one-liners from this movie that are quoted over and over.
No matter where you go, there you are.
White Chicks should not have been critically panned. This is a hilarious movie and has withstood the test of time. Don't be a hater and see it.
Teen Wolf is a howlin' good time. It's a low-stakes 80s horror comedy that the whole family can enjoy. See it.
Sealed with a curse as sharp as a knife. Doomed is your soul and damned is your life. See it. Cheers!
Ow!
Shut up.
He'll come. I know his time.